Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I now call the school committee to order. Since there is no recording secretary tonight, would anyone be interested in taking the minutes before we proceed? Mr. Murch, you will do it? Thank you. I will do roll call. Mr. Bishop?
Present.
Mr. Thomo?
Present.
Ms. Page? Miss Page, Mr. Page, excuse me. Ms. Shea?
Present.
Mr. Murch?
Present.
Raymond Page is absent tonight. We will now move on to public input. Anyone here tonight would like to address the Southbridge School Committee?
Mr. Bishop?
Mr. Bishop? No, that's fine.
I'm speaking this evening not as a school committee member, but as a veteran of the Southbridge Public Schools, as an educator, 26 years as a music educator, 6 years as an administrator. And my comments tonight will be directed towards my years in that profession. At the last meeting, I think it was rather unfortunate that one of our committee members took it upon himself to assail a real true asset to our community and our school system, Dr. Ray Page. I met Ray about 20 years ago. At the time, he was partnered with Dr. Tanya Domingo. They're both professors at WPI. They bring a plethora of knowledge and commitment to our students and our community. Some of the things Ray and Tanya and a bunch of other people, but really Ray and Tanya were the real spearheads of it. They recognized the deplorable conditions that some that we were working with up underneath the cafeteria in the old high school. They took it upon themselves with some efforts from other people. We repainted and repaired all of the hollow core instrument storage doors, painted the band room. Ray and Tanya chaperoned countless band trips and events. He and Tanya were the catalysts for the band trip that our students were fortunate enough to take to Italy in 2005. On that trip, we had 67 students and 25 adults. They organized many, many fundraising events to make this happen, including the silent live auction that we held at the Polish Club, which generated over $14,000 in one evening. They donated all the centerpieces, and I could go on and on about whatever my years with working with Ray and Tanya, whatever I needed, they were a phone call away, and they attended everything. Then as I moved into administration, I got to work with Ray in a different capacity. When I first took over the high school, the science department had been kind of let go, and we spent, myself, Ray, Tanya, and I think their kids, a couple other people, we spent the 3 days of Labor Day weekend cleaning out and organizing the science classrooms and storage spaces. Ray served on the school council for years with me. He served on the American Optical Scholarship Committee, which grants two $40,000 scholarships annually. So he came to SHS regularly to give presentations to all aspects and courses at the high school science department. And finally, I was able to coerce him to come in and spend March through June as a permanent substitute for biology when we lost our teacher mid-year. He served as a judge at the annual Science and Innovation Fair. This man has committed money, time, energy, and expertise far beyond what anybody would ever expect of a parent or a guardian. I think it's unfair, I think it was inappropriate, inaccurate, and unfair for a member of the committee to speak so disparagingly from this dais regarding Dr. Page and his commitment to the students of the Southbridge Public Schools. I think it was further inappropriate and unacceptable for the chair to allow this tact to continue. It should have been gavelled down. And finally, if my fellow committee member has concerns about attendance at our meetings, he should direct his ire towards the $209,000 receiver who hasn't appeared at our meetings since September when he stated, "I don't work for you." He's right, he doesn't. But the results we're getting from our school system right now, I'm wondering who's working. I would like us to work together, but I just cannot sit back and have Dr. Page treated so unfairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Any other members of the public would like to address this committee? Seeing none, we'll now move on to discussion of minutes. Item number 4 from January 14th. Any additions, changes? I have none. Any others? No? Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 5, new business. Agenda item A, receiver superintendent announcements. I did ask the receiver to provide me some announcements. Unfortunately, he did not, stating it wasn't something he couldn't cover at the next meeting, and Ms. Champagne and him both aren't here, so unfortunately, I don't think there's any announcements. We'll now move on to agenda item number 6, chairperson's announcements. Before I begin, I really wanted to highlight something I saw in a local blog, the Citizen Chronicle. It was a letter to the editor from the students, and I really thought it was important tonight to read this letter to the committee and for the public record, because it's important, since we don't have a student rep here, to hear as a school committee what these students feel about their programs. It reads, "Dear Editor, we are a group of students from Southbridge Middle School who attend the 21st Century After School program. We want to tell you about the 21st Century After School program and the YMCA Teen Center programs in Southbridge. The YMCA has been in Southbridge for a long time. It helps us in a lot of ways. When we are at the Teen Center and programs, we get news about the community and events going on. At the YMCA, we can exercise and get fit and learn about healthy lifestyles. It helps us with our language and learning to talk to other people too. The staff help with the problems and other things that we face. We also like that there is a pool. We would be bored without the 21st Century Club and the YMCA. Without the YMCA Teen Center and 21st Century after-school program, we would probably be alone in our homes, playing video games and being a little antisocial. Also, we would be very bored without these programs. Maybe some people don't realize how important these things are to us, so we want people to know about the 21st Century program and the YMCA Teen Center programs. We want the adults to keep the programs and support the YMCA so we can enjoy it. We also want people to know how much we like these activities. Sincerely, Aaron, and I'm going to mess up these names and I apologize, Sosnicki, Andy Nieves, Jason Rodriguez, and Caleb Velez." I wanted to highlight this because what Member Murch has said at some meetings is true. We don't talk enough about the positive. However, it's also important to have somebody here, present, to tell us both the good and the bad. Mr. Murch is right, there's a lot of positive we can be talking about. And there's other members who are right as well when we need to talk about the hard issues this school system is facing. And it requires somebody to be here, to be present and transparent to us so we can have these difficult and enlightening discussions. We should be doing, as past receivers have done, and honoring kids who get these curricular awards, having the choir and the band come before us to show us the progress these students are making and how much they enjoy this school system. And we need to have hard discussions, especially around funding. I asked the receiver specifically for information around the Chapter 70 funding formula and its changes because of the Student Opportunity Act. Because I knew it wasn't as cut and dry as supporters of the act made it out to be. We need to have these discussions, but we need a receiver to be present to have these discussions so we all can do what we can to support the Southbridge school system, which is why we're all here. And with that, I'll now move on to members' forum. I believe last meeting I started on that side, so I'm going to start over here.
I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Thomo?
All set.
Thank you. Ms. Page? I did it again. Ms. Shea?
I didn't know my life's gotten that exciting.
My apologies.
Someone
Ms.
should have
Shea.
told me. I've asked our chairman to contact the Department of Ed in Massachusetts, in Boston, to talk about our receiver. We need information I know we have no power, but at some point, we are going to take this school system back. And at this point, we know nothing about the budgeting procedures. We know nothing about the curriculum. We know nothing about the staffing. We know nothing about the administration. The school committee under ed reform doesn't have a lot of power, but they do have the power to hire and fire the superintendent. They do have the power to do the budget, and they do have the power to do policy. When we received this system back, if we are not ready to hit the ground running, then the system will truly fail. I'm sorry to say it because, as Mr. Murch said, we're supposed to be, a little bit more positive. I do enjoy the Facebook reports from the school system. I love Kelly Gears Landine. She always has something upbeat and positive of what the kids are doing. So I'll end with that happy note. We have some really great things going on at our high school. And thank all the teachers and all the staff and all the students for all of that.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. Mr. Murch.
Thank you. Between last meeting and this meeting, I was able to take a tour of the middle and high school. I hadn't been over to the building, so it was definitely a nice opportunity to be able to walk in and see exactly what our middle and high school students, where they attend school. So it was definitely a cool experience from that point to start. When we went through the middle school first, and we went to select classrooms that had teachers with 10 plus years experience, and classrooms that had teachers with 2 years or less. And you could tell the difference was night and day between the classrooms. The teachers that had 10 plus years of experience had managed to find a way to enact their lesson plan while keeping their students actively engaged and enjoying themselves. And making sure that middle school students enjoy learning is probably one of the most challenging things in education. So to see that we do have teachers and educators in our school that can keep these kids engaged and entertained. We went to a math class, and they had turned the lesson on algebraic functions into a competition between different teams that they had created. The students were able to come up with team names, and some of the team names were hilarious, but they were giving each other flack back and forth. They were battling for bragging rights. I did not answer some of those questions, so I have a lot of studying to do considering my son's going to be in middle school next year. But it was good to see that. On the back half, seeing a teacher with less than 2 years experience, you could see that they were using some of their tools that they had been trained with to keep students engaged, but they did not have the full attention like the more experienced educator did. But students were engaged in classwork. There were some side discussion, but to still see that we had a majority of the students were paying attention and were engaged in the lesson plan that they were reviewing for that day shows me that it's not our educators and it's not our students. It's making sure that the support systems are in place for both. You need to make sure that you have support systems in place for our teachers who have lesser experience to be able to go to some of these other more experienced teachers and for advice, for lesson plans, for how to deal with particular students if maybe they have them if they have the student in the same class. And our students need to have those resources and those teachers that want to engage with them and individualize their learning if they're having a hard time, which I did see a lot of. A lot of students were trying to learn the lesson, they were having issues, but the teacher was still trying to make sure that they were getting the necessary information to continue the lesson. Went through a class transition. The receiver says that they have 4 minutes before they are considered late to change classes. We timed it. I timed it with my stopwatch. 4 minutes, the bell rang. There was one student at his locker, and he was trying to stuff his locker to get back to class. But other than that, it appeared smooth. I did see a couple of negative experiences. I did see a student watching what appeared to be a Twitch live stream of a video game, which the receiver immediately had addressed directly in front of us. I also did see a student having a little bit of a self-crisis. Was very angry, was yelling expletives, very loud in the hallway, pretty disruptive. Did have a social worker walking with him and escorting the student. But overall, what I saw at the Southbridge Middle School on the middle school side was a middle school that needs more support. That's up to the receiver, and through repeated discussions, the receiver says there are tools that are in place through professional development. They are giving these teachers with lesser experience additional tools and additional supports. I have spoken with a couple of teachers at the middle school. I did have the opportunity to speak with, and they second Dr. Villar's statements that they do have supports. They do say that they wish they had more, but they do have enough in place, and they do feel confident that if there is ever an issue, that they can get it resolved. Again, I didn't speak to every teacher in the middle school. I'm sure that if you talk to every teacher, you're going to get some good, some bad, some really bad, and some really good. But overall, my experience, these horror stories that I hear about students throwing chairs and students just not being engaged at all, no class being engaged at all, the teacher has no control, I didn't see that. I saw a little bit of a rambunctious student body, but I didn't see anything that was out of control. So I don't know if I went on the world's best day to go to Southbridge Middle School, but I just have a real hard time believing that I managed to come on the good day. So the high school had a lot of similar experiences. They had an outside educator in a science class, which I wish we could employ within the district, but she likes to travel and do different lessons to different classes across the state. So that's not one educator we're going to get, but every student was engaged in that class, and there was not one phone out anywhere that I could see. And in 2020, the fact that I didn't see a cell phone on a desk in a classroom was incredible to see. That's about having teachers with the necessary tools to keep students engaged. And that's what I think we should focus on, is focusing on what progress we are making as far as the climate and culture, and ensuring that we don't have a lot of teachers with experience. 60% of our teachers have less than 5 years experience. We just need to ensure that they have the necessary support network to be able to continue to learn their career. I think with the multiple educators on this dais, you can agree that no teacher comes out of college knowing how to be a teacher. It takes an extensive amount of time and classroom interaction outside of just being a TA. It takes a while to find your niche and to figure yourself out as an educator. I've had multiple educators in my family, so that's where I think my passion comes from. But they've always said it takes a long time. I see a lot of positive progress. I do see a lot of issues, and one is with communication. The receiver is not here tonight, and there was a bit of confusion amongst members as to why, and it was all due to lack of communication. That is one thing that I think I'm going to keep pounding into the receiver every time that I meet him, because I discuss it every time. What are you going to do to improve the education to the community and to us? What are you going to do to improve the communication? Clearly, there was a lack of communication regarding this meeting. Clearly. Be it, and I think there's some semblance where our communications with the receiver, both sides, are at fault to some degree. But I have worked with many people that I did not like, that I did not agree with personally, that I really didn't want to be around. But when it comes down, when you got to knuckle down and put it to brass tacks and just get the job done regardless. There is a collective of knowledge and perspective on this dais. And there's a collective of knowledge and understanding within central office. And I would love to see, as this school year winds down to a close, since we just had our 100th day yesterday, I would love to see all of us on both sides engaging with each other to figure out how we can push Southbridge forward with the system that we have now, whether we like it or not, because I don't like the system that we have in place either, but I got to deal with it. And we're here for the next 3 years, so there's not much we're going to be able to do to change it, so we might as well just roll with the punches and see what we can do. And there's many years of experience and many years of dedicated service up here on this dais in multiple different capacities. And I don't think there's any reason why we can't find a way to talk to each other and work together and work out our differences if we have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murch. Any other comments?
Madam Chairman, may
Ms. Shea? Yes.
Next month's meeting, the March meeting is going to be a budget meeting. I would suggest that all of you out there in TV land and the community take some time out of your day to watch if you can't be here, at least to watch. This is going to be a very difficult budget because I understand that the state was going to give us a great deal of money, and now it seems like the state is not going to give us anywhere near as much money as they had promised. And Chairman Ryan tells us that Bay Path also will be asking us for a great deal more money just to meet minimum net school spending. So please watch the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. And I will do one more civic announcement. February 12th, that is the last day you can register to vote.
Today.
Is it? Yes?
No, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Today's the
Tomorrow
11th.
next.
Yeah, tomorrow.
So is
So
Tomorrow
tomorrow.
night at 8.
Tomorrow is the last day to register to vote. If you want to vote in the presidential primaries in Massachusetts, you got to make sure you are registered to vote by tomorrow. The town clerk's office will be open until 8, I believe.
Yes.
So you have all day to come down and register to vote and do your civic duty.
If I may, I did forget
Yes.
something. Thank you. The nomination papers are available at the town clerk's office. We have multiple seats available for multiple different boards that are up for election on the ballot this year. One thing that has always been an issue with the town of Southbridge is getting people to turn out and volunteer. We are working in the right direction, but I think that I would encourage any resident that would like to give back to their community in some form or another, check with the town clerk's office and see what seats are available for what committees. As far as I'm aware, we have the the empty seat up for election, and I believe 3 seats are also up for re-election on the school committee. There are also multiple seats up for election on the town council side as well as a myriad of other boards throughout town. There's always a way you can help. And I grew up with the sentiment of if you live somewhere, then you always should leave it in a better spot than when you came. And I think that my grandfather told me that, and that sentiment has lasted with me till this day and days as they go by. So I would encourage people to give back to their community and help make it a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murch. Any other? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? The meeting's adjourned.